Well, Razorback fans, we know it's Arkansas and Texas week, and what is it going to take for the Razorbacks to pull off the upset? Well, let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. We know that it is a Tuesday, and on Tuesdays, we always have to do our THV 11 Tuesdays here on Locked On. So let's go ahead and welcome in the sports director of THV 11 down there in the Central Arkansas area. It is Tyler Cass. And Tyler, once again, man, appreciate you joining us. How you doing this afternoon?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, I love doing it. I get 2 minutes a night to talk about sports on TV, so a little more room to breathe here. It's nice.
Yeah, it's a little bit more creative. We can really get into the hot takes and debates and everything. But I doubt there's going to be much of that considering Arkansas football right now. The confidence isn't very high. Texas coming to town. They're the top 5 team in the country. They are, statistically speaking, one of the best teams in the country offensively and defensively. And Arkansas, after the last showing we saw in Fayetteville, was one too impressive. So just what's your overall vibe and feeling heading into this game for Arkansas? Is this going to be one of those Arkansas-Tennessee type games at home? Or is it more likely going to be one of these Arkansas-Ole Miss type of game at home?
Yeah, I mean, look, all the things you said, top 5 team, really good offensively and defensively, those are all things you could have said about Tennessee before that game. Plus, a UT that's some shade of orange. It all kind of lines up, but it just feels different. I mean, that was a Tennessee team that was pretty much untested, I think, coming into Arkansas. And they've since proven themselves to still be very good, but, they weren't actually a top 2 offense and defensive team in the country. It matched up pretty well, and the Razorbacks played their best game of the season easily. Texas feels a little bit more legit at this point. Some of that's just it's later in the season. We've seen more. We've seen Texas go through some things and still kind of come out the other side as a top 5 team and as a team that can hurt you really on both sides of the ball. Not to, you can't, I think, read too much into any team playing against Florida this year. It's not a good Florida team, but I mean, that was a wildly impressive game to do against any sort of SEC team, I think, is what Texas put together last week. So, no, I don't come in with any confidence whatsoever. I think Arkansas had a couple chances to prove themselves that, like, the Tennessee game wasn't an aberration. It was a true turning of the page, and they emphatically didn't do that. Because, again, you lose to LSU, you lose to Ole Miss. I don't want to say that's fine, but it's different based on how they lost to those teams. They're just non-competitive whatsoever at home. I can't even give them the home field advantage boost because Sam Pittman and the teams haven't had that outside of one game against Tennessee. So sure, a great chance to prove that wasn't a fluke, but they've already had multiple chances to prove that and failed.
Yeah, I was laughing about it earlier because I was thinking about the chances I was giving Arkansas. If this game was in Austin, I would actually give them a better chance than what it would be in Fayetteville, just all things considered. But that's kind of what has been going on with this team. And I guess the nervous thing about it is we saw what happened last year at the end of the season in the month of November, where, I know that Arkansas was a much worse record. They were not in much contention for anything, but it was just absolute destruction there in Fayetteville against Auburn, against Missouri, and everything. And coming off of a bye week, that is kind of the concern that I have for this team. Have they let go? Are they over it? Is it going to be blowout city? So the question I have is if Arkansas does get embarrassed, similar to what they did against Ole Miss, which isn't out of the realm of possibility because Texas is definitely capable of doing that. I mean, where do you go if you're Arkansas for those final 2 games against Louisiana Tech and a Missouri team, which they haven't beaten them often, but it's not like they're incredible. They're not a great team. It's a winnable game, but where do you find the confidence? Where do you find the joy? Where do you find the motivation to go out there and finish the season strong?
I mean, first of all, according to Eli Drinkwitz, that's a playoff Missouri team you're talking about right there. But no, I mean, yeah, a win, a scoop and score to win against a bad Oklahoma team doesn't inspire confidence. No, I mean, you almost wish the Louisiana Tech game wasn't when it was because, I mean, again, if they lose Louisiana Tech, I think that makes a lot of decisions a lot easier. But there should be no issues in that game. And I think, unfortunately, as much as they might talk about one game at a time, approach every game the same, the players know Louisiana Tech is there. You win that, you're in a bowl, and you're probably feeling not great, but all right. Which that's where Texas becomes almost a tougher coaching job. Is how do you get guys up for a game where they're, massive underdogs? The thing that you seem to be playing for, a bowl game, is still very doable, even if you lose this game. And it's weird. You talk about teams looking ahead to a superior opponent. Usually I can see Arkansas getting caught looking ahead to a much inferior opponent in Louisiana Tech, because they're like, well, we only got to win one, and that game's coming up. We're going to get that one. So not saying, oh, we'll just punt this game. But again, with the expectations being what they are, that's where you start running into the danger, like I said, of the locker room kind of letting go of the rope a little bit, because the punishment isn't quite there. It's not like, oh, they're going to be checked out because there's no bowl game left. They could almost check out and still go to a bowl game. Look, Louisiana Tech is still a Division I college football team. You can't go out there and roll out your backups with not a care in the world and win. But Arkansas should almost be able to show up and just beat them by beating the Razorbacks. So I think it's a real, especially like you said, with the bye week this week, this is going to be a huge test of Sam Pittman's ability to rally the locker room and get the team up to just play competitive. Because I think that's what people want to see. Do they want to see a win? Yeah, they'll storm the field, they'll go crazy. But almost more importantly is seeing a team that looks like they care. That looks like, hey, just winning one more against a bad team and getting to a bowl, that's not the goal. They want more than that.
Well, and also to the point with this Texas team, just looking at the game notes and the stats, Texas is number 2 in the SEC, 10 overall in scoring offense. And they're number 1 in the SEC and number 4 overall in scoring defense. So what that means is that they score a ton of points and they don't allow teams to score very many on them. So the question becomes for Arkansas, do you have more confidence in the defense that last time we saw had records set on them by Ole Miss? Or do you have a little bit more confidence in Arkansas's offense, which has been pretty banged up and seems to be somewhat still banged up? And we don't even know what the starters are going to look like fully at this point in time. But which side of the ball do you feel like is better set to have a good game against Texas?
Yeah, well, those availability reports, when they start coming out, will tell us a lot more this week, obviously, with what we're getting: quarterback, running back, tight end, offensive line. But as tough as it is to say, coming off that Ole Miss game and looking at what this Texas offense can do, it still feels like Arkansas's best chance is the defense going all out and just keeping them in the game and letting, hopefully, a Taylon Green find an explosive play, find a big play. They're probably going to need, a couple defensive takeaways just to stay in it. I don't think there's a world where this Arkansas team wins a shootout, because Ole Miss kind of tried to give them that, but Arkansas just was not capable of it. And you can go, oh, look, Arkansas's offense actually put up the highest point total I think that Ole Miss has given up this year, or at least in that C play, something like that, and they weren't even close. So I think there's some confidence in the offense to be able to put up mid-20s, low 30s. So it's got to be up to the defense to keep them there. And I just go back to the Tennessee game. That's what it was. It was the defense playing essentially a perfect first half of football. The offense not taking advantage of anything, but thanks to the defense, they were in a position to put things together in the second half. And that's what I think it's going to have to be. There's not a world where Taylon Green leading this offense goes toe-to-toe, I think, with Quinn Ewers, Arch Manning, whoever's out there for Texas.
We'll speak a little bit on the basketball team as they got a return home to Troy coming up tomorrow night. We'll do that here in a second, so stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, you know that you Razorback fans are always excited about the NIL and the discussions from it. Well, I can tell you that because Roy, they are all about the NIL. You need to download the app right now. You had heard us talk about Roy and how it is revolutionizing the NIL industry. Roy allows you, the fan, to have a say in who gets the NIL money. And here's what I absolutely love about Roy. You get your money back if that player transfers, which we know is very possible given the transfer portal and how often it happens. But Roy is helping us get the team intact, and it's actually good for the game long term. So you can show your support for my guy Hudson Clark, the no-fly zone. Who's who I'm picking this week. by depositing a little appreciation onto that player's account. To do that, you got to download the Roy app, and you can see what the logo looks like if you're watching on YouTube, or you can go to joinroy.com. But now let's go ahead and give it that spotlight to Hudson Clark coming up against Texas this weekend. Main reason I'm giving it to him is Arkansas coming off a bye week. They didn't play this last week, but Hudson's one of the few players that's actually played against Texas the last time these two teams met there in Fayetteville in 2021 and had a really good game in that one too. So join me and show some love for old Hudson Clark, who's the no-fly zone, by downloading the Roy app. And you got to go over to joinroy.com today. Use promo code LOCKEDON. Every athlete from every team is there. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Go to joinroy.com for full terms. It's Roy. Support the players. Change the game. We're also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel, the America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on in the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Continuing on our discussion with the sports director there of THB 11, it's Tyler Cass. Moving to the basketball side of things, Tyler. Arkansas sitting at 1-1. They did drop that game to Baylor down there in Dallas over the weekend. But, there's still a lot of things to work on. But now they have about a 4-game stretch at home against opponents that, not saying they're not good, but they're opponents that Arkansas should take care of business against. And then you have another big game against Illinois on Thanksgiving. So in that 4-game stretch, since you are going up against, you would say, easier competition, what are the things that you feel like the Razorback basketball team really need to focus on here in the next 4 games to make sure that they're getting ready for not only the big non-conference games, but also and especially SEC play?
Shooting. I think that's the biggest one, especially after the last couple of years. I think Arkansas in general, everyone who follows Arkansas basketball is a little gun shy about poor shooting from 3. And we've seen that again so far this year. And it's, like you said, it's early. It's 2 games in 2 different arenas. Now, like 4 games in a row at your home court, the place where you got to have those sight lines down. Everything is what you want it to be. And I want to see that this team isn't a bad shooting team. They were just a team that needed to get their form, to start seeing some shots fall. Because if it's a bad shooting team, then things start to look a little dicier down the road. If they are going, 5 of 20, 5 of 22, whatever, from 3 every night, that's not going to fly, especially once you get to SEC play. But yeah, so that's step 1. Like you said, these are games where they should win, games where you can kind of just give guys green lights to get right a little bit and not worry too much about the outcome. And then beyond that, I think some of it's just getting guys healthy. Cal did talk about, the week before the season started was the first time they were practicing with 10 guys. And you've kind of seen that, I think, in how he's been dealing with rotations. Again, we're all still learning the John Calipari of it all. And, coming off a guy with such a short bench and Eric Musselman and going to Cal where I don't think it's a short bench. He's been he only has, 8, 9 guys who are his scholarship guys. You'd expect, all right, if I'm limiting the scholarships to below the limit, I'm going to use them all. So we'll kind of see what everyone's roles are, I think, a bit more over the next couple weeks, and just a lot more TRO. That guy, that was what a stretch, pretty much single-handedly keeping Arkansas in that game. I loved watching him, and then just the guards, kind of who's going to emerge as not just a scorer, because I think that's the issue with Arkansas's guard play the first couple of games is you've got a couple dudes there, and Nelly and Boogie, who are used to being scorers. And that's, what they were asked to do in high school and what they, I'm sure, did wildly successfully. And now it's like, all right, someone's got to kind of run an offense out here a little bit. And that's just an adjustment. And they have plenty of time to adjust. They should go 4-0. I think if they lose one of these games, it's not the end of the world. It's a team with brand new players, brand new coach, brand new everything, still figuring things out. So I'm not going to start worrying about this team. I'm just going to try to enjoy them, at least until football season's done. Football gives us plenty to worry about. So basketball right now is almost just kind of an escape, win or lose. But yeah, look, it was it was a good Baylor team. Gonzaga result notwithstanding, probably a Baylor team that maybe even played a little hungrier than Arkansas just because they had to prove, hey, we just got blown out of a building by Gonzaga. We're not that. But yeah, no, going forward now, a month of Arkansas basketball games, they should win. I just want to see them get that 3-point shooting percentage at least above 30% or something. And then really to start working that back end of the rotation and seeing who's actually going to play this year once SEC play rolls around.
Well, looking at it from what we've seen just in a small sample size, because as you mentioned, you got to get some guys healthy. Jonas Adu is the biggest factor of that. But what would you say is maybe something you've seen in not only the exhibition games, but in the first couple of games, it's maybe been a pleasant surprise? Maybe something that's been better than what you would thought it would be, whether it's something from the team or just from an individual player?
I mentioned Zierro. I think, obviously high expectations, had high expectations for most of the guys on this roster. But just from a, not I don't want to say off the court, but non-pure basketball talent standpoint, from that game was starting to slip away, and then he's a guy who can take things into his own hands and keep Arkansas right there. That felt like something Arkansas has been missing the last couple of years. Is a Mason Jones, if you will, a type of guy who can just be like, all right, we need points in these next 3 possessions. Get out of the way. I can do this myself. And especially last year, but even the year before that, when you had all the 5-star guys, there wasn't really a guy, the go-to, and that could end up being a bunch of different guys. Obviously, I think Boogie and Ellie are both guys we expect to show flashes of that, and they each kind of have so far. Again, real small sample size, but just having someone who Arkansas can trust. If it's, hey, down double digits, need to get this to a 5-point game, or hey, it's a tie game, final minute. Here's who our primary option is going to be. Seeing someone develop into that over the next month would be huge. I think we've started to see little glimpses of it.
Well, before what you get out of here, Tyler, of course, I know down there at THV11, it's a really busy time of year just in the media. You got football still going on. You got basketball, not only Arkansas, but also local high school. So what's all going on right now, and especially this week heading in the middle of November down there at THV11?
High school football playoffs, baby. Most exciting time of the year. It's actually finally getting cool and crisp outside on some Friday nights. Feels like football season, kind of. It's also in the middle of November, so it's still 75 degrees. But yeah, first week of playoffs this Friday. We're still do our Friday night blitz show. All 20 minutes of highlights coming at you every Friday night. The games just keep ratcheting it up in intensity. All kinds of fun, and then Hog Zone on Saturdays. During football season. So 3 more weeks of Hog Zone every Saturday night at 10, where we have 30 minutes of just breaking down Arkansas football. This Saturday as well, the fun one in Central Arkansas, the Battle of the Ravine. And we'll be all over that as well. D2, Ouachita Baptist and Henderson State. It's really cool. This is the 97th Battle of the Ravine. So in a couple years, we get number 100. I'd have to double check it. They like to bill it as the longest running rivalry in college football, D1 or D2 at any level. There are people who've been like, well, there's a few caveats in there, but it's a really cool one. The visiting team still dresses in their own locker room, and then they walk across the highway to the other school in full uniform. It's a lot of fun. And both teams, especially OBU this year, are really good. We got great D2 football in Arkansas. I mean, Harding is still a favorites to repeat as national champions, if you want to ask. So I think people get burned down the Hogs. Obviously, we're still going to cover them, but there's a lot of other fun college football happening on Saturdays.
There's no doubt about it. That is Tyler Cass of THV11. He's the sports director down there in Central Arkansas, and you can catch him every night there on THV11. You can also check out their website at THV11.com. But as always, Tyler, appreciate you joining us. Enjoy the week, my man, and we'll be catching up with you next Tuesday.
Sounds good. See you then.